Okay. Our next topic is the energy transfer. As you know, we are studying the ecosystem, and under this ecosystem, we have studied the introduction to the ecosystem. After that, we have covered the productivity, how the productivity occurs within the ecosystem. Now, under this productivity, the different types of productivity, that is the gross productivity and the net primary productivity, we have discussed, as well as the primary and the secondary productivity, right? So, in this particular next video, we are going to understood what do you mean by the energy transfer. Okay, how the energy transfer occur within the ecosystem. As you know, the plants are the basic producers in the ecosystem, and then from the plants to the successive trophic level, this energy is going to transfer. Right. So, how this energy transferred from one organism to the another organism, this query will be solved within this particular video lecture. And also with that, we will also discuss many terms like the trophic levels, right? Then the food web, right? What is the difference between the food web and the food chain? And the 10% law. Okay, all these are very basic to the ecology, and hence it is very, very important to understand carefully so that we can understand subsequent more important topics. Right. So consider this is your syllabus. We are dealing with the paper number 2 and the chapter number 5, that is ecology and the plant geography. We are here at the ecosystems, and under the ecosystems, we are studying the structure and the functioning of an ecosystem. Okay. Now consider the sun is the only source of energy for all the ecosystem on the earth. Yes, we have understood this. Whatever the energy which is coming to the ecosystem on the earth, all this energy, it is coming from the sun. This sun radiates the radiant energy, and this radiant energy is trapped by the plant and converted into the chemical energy. Now this chemical energy or the organic food material which is created by the plant, this food material will then transfer to the successive trophic levels, right? So basically, from where the energy has started from the sun, and sun is the actual source of energy which is providing for the ecosystem to have a sustainable growth. Due to the radiant energy provided by the sun, the ecosystem can run on itself, okay? Because the plants, the only organism in the ecosystem, can harvest this particular radiant energy and convert this energy into the chemical energy. And then on this chemical energy, whole of the ecosystem is dependent, okay? But from where this energy is coming? This energy is coming from the sun. All right. Now, see, of the incident solar radiation, less than a 50% of it is the photosynthetically active radiation. As you know, in the plants, we have the different pigments. For example, we have the as you know, within the plant, we have the different types of the molecule which can trap the photon energy or the radiant energy. The most famous one is the chlorophyll A and the chlorophyll B molecule. Okay, this chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B molecule are largely responsible for the photosynthetic product within the plant body. So this chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B is having a very peculiar wavelength which can be absorbed by these pigments. Okay, this graph shows you that how which wavelength is actually absorbed by the chlorophyll A pigment and which wavelength is actually absorbed by the chlorophyll B pigment. That literally means not every kind of the wavelength is absorbed by the chlorophyll molecules to create the food energy, but there are some specific wavelength on which these particular pigments are highly active, while the rest of the wavelengths are neglected by these pigments. Okay, so whatever the incident solar radiation is there, whatever the radiation which is coming from the sun, 50% of it only is the photosynthetically active radiation, that is PAR. Now, this term will be very important from the physiology point of view when we study the photosynthesis, because you should understand the photosynthetically active radiation is that radiation which can actually be utilized by the plants to create the food material. Okay, while rest of the 50% will go waste because they are not in a proper range to be harvested by the pigments like the chlorophyll A and the chlorophyll B. Okay, now see the plants, the photosynthetic and the chemosynthetic bacteria, that is the outer drops, can fix the sun energy and to make the food material, that is the simple inorganic materials, right? From the simple inorganic materials, that is the H2O or the CO2 from the soil and from the air and sunlight from the sun. By using these resources, plants can actually create the food material. Okay, so photosynthesis is a very complex process in which the H2O can be extracted from the soil by the roots, then the CO2 is taken from the air, and the radiant energy coming from the sun is trapped, and together all these reactions comes together, and the chlorophyll molecule will harvest the radiant energy to create the food material. Okay, so here on the mother earth, the plants and the photosynthetic and the chemosynthetic bacteria, okay, there is a class of one bacteria which can actually do the photosynthesis, and chemosynthetic bacteria were also there which can create the food material, hence they can also called as the autotrophs. So all of these organisms are able to create the food material by using the inorganic chemical components, for example H2O, CO2, and the sunlight from the sun. Okay, so the primary source of the food material or the primary source of energy is coming from the sun, and the plants or the chemosynthetic or the photosynthetic bacteria are only organism only in the ecosystem which can harvest this energy and create the food material for rest of the ecosystem. Okay, now see, plants can capture only 2 to 10% of the PAR. Okay, whatever the 50% PAR there, out of this 50% of PAR, 2 to 10% is only captured by the plant, while rest of the radiation will fall on the ground where there will be no any plants. Okay, actually they can in the PAR region all can be trapped, but the radiation which is falling directly on the soil will go wasted. Okay, so out of it, only the 2 to 10% part of the PAR is actually utilized by the plants to create the photosynthetic food material, right? Now this small amount of energy sustains the entire living world. Now from imagine from this, that out of the 100% of the solar energy, only the 50% is photosynthetically active, and out of it only 2 to 10% of the energy is actually utilized by the plants, and this 2 to 10% of the energy is actually running whole of the ecosystem. So there's such a less amount of energy which can be harvested from the sun can actually run a whole of the ecosystems on the mother earth, right? So the whatever the region of the PAR which is trapped and converted into the food material is sufficient and enough to run the ecosystems on the mother earth. Now see how the solar energy is captured by the plants flows through the different organisms in the ecosystem now, right? So once the from the sun it is captured by the plant, how this energy which is captured by the plants or the autotrophs will get transferred to the different trophic levels of the ecosystem. This will be the question, right? That is how the energy which is firstly present within the sun, then it is transferred to the plants, and now it is going to transfer within the different trophic levels of the ecosystem. How this happens, this is the question, and we are going to find the answer, right? Now see, all the organisms are dependent for their food on the producers. Okay, all of the organisms, either directly or indirectly, they were typically dependent on the plants for their food resource. Why? Because there is no other food, organism which can create their own food. For example, if you take the example of a herbivore, in that the deer or the rabbit, they are directly dependent on the producers, that is the plants, and they were directly consuming the plants. They are famously called as herbivores because they consume the plant, and by consuming this plant they can complete their life cycle. They have no any other source of the energy, and for example they cannot create their own food material by using the sun energy. Who is creating the food material? Only the producers or the plants, and the herbivores are directly dependent on these producers or the plants for their food purposes. Now these herbivores in turn captured by the carnivores, and carnivores taking all their food material from the herbivores. But indirectly, these carnivores were also dependent on the plants. How? Because if the plants are not there, there will not be any herbivores. And if the herbivores will not there, then there will not be any carnivores. So basically carnivores are typically dependent on the herbivore, but indirectly they were dependent on the plants, because the plants are the organism which can harbor the herbivores, and due to the presence of the herbivore there will be the presence of the carnivore, right? So directly or indirectly, every organism on the mother earth or in the ecosystem, they were directly or indirectly dependent on the plants for their energy needs. Okay, so you find this is the unidirectional flow of energy right from the sun to the producer to the consumer. Okay, so it is a unidirectional flow of energy, right? How the energy is transferring here? See, this energy was firstly present within the sun, then it is goes to the plants, that is producers, then to the herbivores, and then to the carnivores, right? And after this, after any one of it dies, that is if the plant dies, herbivore dies, or the carnivore dies, this will get decomposed and energy will be liberated in the environment. So it's a unidirectional flow. Okay, it is not the cyclic flow. Okay, nutrients will get recycled, nutrients, whatever the H2O, whatever the CO2 was there, it will get recycled, but not the energy. Energy will always flow in a unidirectional way. Okay, this will be very important to be note in the UPSC mains examination, that there will be the unidirectional flow of energy of the right from the sun to the producers to the herbivores to the carnivores. Okay, and this is not the cyclic flow that energy going to reverse it again. Always there will be required a sun which can provide the constant source of energy. Okay, this energy will not get recycled, and hence the new energy will be needed from time to time. Okay, so this is the unidirectional flow of energy right from the sun to the producers to the consumers. All right, now consider, see, the ecosystem needs a constant supply of energy to synthesize the molecules they require. to counteract the universal tendency towards increasing disorderness. So basically, whatever the plants are there, these plants will always require the sun energy to create the food material, and this food material, once created by the plants, will go to the herbivores, and then this energy will transfer to the carnivores and then to the top carnivores. And if one of them dies, this energy will be liberated into the environment, which will then contribute to the increasing disorderedness of the universe. Okay, as you know, the energy, due to this energy, there is a ever expanding universe is there, and universe has this tendency to go into the disorderness constantly, and this energy flow will contribute to that. Now this particular ecosystem which runs on this energy food material, this will always be dependent on the sun, and when this got transferred, this will always be go transferred in the unidirectional way, and this will not come back, and hence this will contribute to the increasing disorderedness in an universe. Right now, the green plants are called as producers. Of course, at the very first level, here are the plants. These are green plants are called as producers because they produce food by using the sunlight, H2 and CO2. Right, in the terrestrial ecosystem, if you consider the terrestrial ecosystem, that is the plants which are living on the land, this is a terrestrial ecosystem. The major producers are the herbaceous and the woody plants. Okay, whatever the herbaceous plants are there, small herbaceous stem possessing plants are there, or sometimes there is a woody plants. Okay, these are herbaceous plants, and the woody plants are the primary source of the food material creating plants. Okay, so food material creating machines are there which are called as the plants or the producers, and how they are able to produce the food material, right, by using the sunlight, CO2 and the H2O. Okay, so in the terrestrial ecosystem, the herbaceous plants and the woody plants are the primary producers. Likewise, the primary producers in the aquatic ecosystems are the various species of the phytoplankton, algae and the higher plants. Okay, so if you compare the producers of the land ecosystem to with that of the oceanic ecosystem, in the land ecosystem you will have the herbaceous and the woody plant, while in the aquatic ecosystem you will find the presence of the phytoplanktons, different types of the algae are there, and sometimes the higher plants like the angiosperms also found there. So these plants will actually contribute to the production of the food material in an aquatic ecosystem. But in the terrestrial ecosystem, majority of them are the herbaceous and the woody plant. Okay, this will differ from ecosystem to ecosystem, and you should be able to compare between the terrestrial ecosystem and the aquatic ecosystem in relation to the primary producers. Who are the primary producers in the aquatic ecosystem? Those are different, and those who are producers in the terrestrial ecosystem, these plants are different. Okay, although both are the plants, in every ecosystem plants are responsible for the production of food energy, but the nature of a plant is different, because you will not find much of the algae in the terrestrial land, and you will not find much of the woody plants in the aquatic ecosystem. Okay, so there are different kinds of the plants are responsible for the production of energy or to be act as a primary producers in the different ecosystems. For example, the terrestrial ecosystem and the aquatic ecosystem. Okay, now consider, see, the starting point of a plants or producers food chain or the webs are formed that the animal feeds on the plants or on the another animal, and in turn for the another for the food purposes. Okay, so basically here from the sun, the energy going to the plants, that is producers, and producers, it is going to the herbivores, that is herbivores consuming this plant, and these are carnivores consuming these herbivores, and hence here the energy will get transferred. Now furthermore, we have one more extra step in a certain ecosystems. Here we have the top carnivores which can consume the carnivores as well as the herbivores. So the animals are in turn eating the other animals for getting their food material. Okay, so but all of this starting from the sun, it is going to the plants, and then it's going to the herbivore, to the carnivore, to the top carnivore. Okay, and if some of them dies, it will go under the process of decomposition. All right, so one by after each trophic level, the energy will transfer from the previous trophic level. That is, if you consider the first trophic level as a plants, the second trophic level as a herbivore, and the third trophic level as a carnivore, you will find the below whatever the trophic level which is present below, from here the energy will get transferred to the upper trophic level. Okay, now consider, see, the no energy that is trapped into an organism remain it into the forever. Okay, now see, this point is very important to get understand. See, no organism in the ecosystem can hold the energy for forever. For example, if the from the sun, whatever the energy is coming, this is trapped inside the body of a plant. Okay, now but this plant is not immortal. Okay, this plant is going to die in sometimes. Okay, or it may get consumed by the herbivore, right? So some portion of a plant energy may got transferred into the herbivore, and this portion of some of the energy will get transferred to the carnivore, and some portion of the energy will get transferred to the top carnivore. But this energy which is trapped within the body of a plant, within the body of a herbivore, within the body of carnivore, or within the body of top carnivore, this will not remain there for forever, because there is a typical lifespan for every living organism, and some or the another way these animals or plants are going to die, and after the death this energy will be liberated into the environment. So energy will not stay at one place within the body of organism. Okay, it will never be trapped. Okay, no energy can be trapped within the body of organism for forever, right? Ultimately these organisms are going to die, and they has to liberate their all of the energy into the environment. The energy which is trapped by the producers are, hence it is either passed on to the consumer or organisms dies. Okay, so two things are there, two possibilities are there. If the energy is trapped by the plants, it will transfer to the next trophic level, or ultimately this plant will die. In both the ways the energy will get liberated from the body of a plant. Okay, and if the energy is present within the body of herbivore, it may transfer the energy to the higher level, or it may get die. Okay, but either way they has to liberate their energy. It will not stay within their body for forever, right? Now death of an organism is the beginning of the detritus food chain. As you know, after the death, whatever the dead body of organism is there, from this dead body the detritus food chain started. Okay, now this detritus food chain hold a very good example of the transfer of energy, because how the energy which is present within the dead body can be transferred to the different trophic levels. This is also a transfer of energy within the detritus food chain. As opposing to this, we have the grazing food chain, right? We have the aquatic food chain. Okay, the different types of food chains are there which are occurring at the different ecosystem. But the detritus food chain is found in every ecosystem, because the organism is going to die, and after the death of an organism, these material should get liberated to the environment, right? And the special role played by the decomposers, for example the fungi and the bacteria in this. Okay, these are bacteria and the fungi are responsible for the detritus food chain, and they will transfer whole of the energy which is present within the dead body to the next trophic levels, and ultimately to the environment. Okay, so let us talk about the detritus food chain. Okay, now see, all the animals were dependent on the plants directly or indirectly for their food needs. Yes, we have discussed that, and they are hence called as consumers, are also the heterotrophs. Okay, because they are not producing any kind of food, but they are present on the plants. Okay, they are not producing their own food, but they are dependent directly or indirectly on the plant, and hence we use the term consumer, because they consume from the plant. Okay, or the heterotrophs as against the autotrophs, because they cannot prepare their own food. So whatever the length of organisms or the animals are there, which are dependent directly or indirectly on the plant, we will directly call them as a consumers or the heterotrophs. Okay, now if they feed on the producers, these that is the plants, they are called as the primary consumer. Okay, so these consumer are of different types. Okay, depending upon what they are consuming. For example, if they are directly consuming the plants, then we will call them as a primary consumer. Okay, so here you can understand, see, these are herbivores. These are herbivores are directly consuming the plants. For example, the insects are there, rabbit is there, deer is there. Okay, all these are directly consuming the plants, and they are directly dependent on the plants for their food needs. Hence they are called as the primary consumers. Okay, so the herbivores within the ecosystem or in the trophic level are considered as a primary consumers. And if the animals eat the other animals, which in turn eat the plant, or they are produced, see, they are called as the secondary consumers. So whatever the animals which are consuming the other animals, these are considered as a secondary consumers. Okay, because these consumers are directly consuming the animals on which these animals are directly dependent on the plants. See, these plants are consumed by the herbivores. These herbivores are directly dependent on the plants, and these herbivores are directly consumed by the secondary consumers. Okay, so basically these secondary consumers are those organisms which feeds on the another animal which is dependent directly on the plants for their food needs. Okay, so secondary primary consumers are there, and the secondary consumers are there. Primary consumers are those consumers which directly consume the plants, and the secondary consumers are those consumers which directly consume the herbivores, that is the primary consumers. In a similar way, we also have the tertiary consumer which are going to feed not only on the secondary consumer but also on the primary consumer. So there are basically three types of the consumers. Okay, primary consumer, secondary consumer, and the tertiary consumer. And all these types are the types of the animals. Okay, these are the types of the heterotrophs. Plants are not involved in this, because plants are the primary producers. Okay, they produce the photosynthetic product, they produce the food material. But these food material, when it transferred to the animal kingdom, these animals can be divided into the three categories. The very first category is the primary consumer, the second is the secondary consumer, and the third is the tertiary consumer. Okay, primary consumer, secondary consumer, and the tertiary consumer. These are primary consumers are those which directly feeds on plant, secondary consumers feeds on the primary consumer, and the tertiary consumer feeds on the primary as well as the secondary consumer. But it all started from the plants. Okay, so directly or indirectly every organism is dependent on the plants. Okay, so remember the three types of the consumer: primary, secondary, and the tertiary consumers. Okay, see, likewise there are the tertiary consumers too. See, obviously the primary consumers will be herbivores. Okay, whatever the primary consumers are there, these primary consumers will always be called herbivores because they are directly feeding on the plant. Now some common herbivores are the insects, birds, and the mammals. Right, insect, birds, and the mammals are there which can directly feed on the plants, hence they can be considered as a typical examples of the herbivores. And examples are important from the mains examination point of view, because after writing down the theory you have to justify your claim by giving the examples of appropriate organisms within the ecosystem. Okay, in a terrestrial ecosystem, the herbivores are the insects, birds, and the mammals. While in the aquatic ecosystem, we will find the particular class of animal kingdom which is called the mollusks. They are the herbivores within the aquatic ecosystem. Okay, it will change from ecosystem to ecosystem. Within the terrestrial ecosystem, you will find the herbivore in the form of insects, birds, and mammals, and in the aquatic ecosystem, you will find them in the form of mollusk. Okay, now the consumers that feeds on the herbivores are called as the carnivores. See, whatever the consumers which are feeds on the herbivores, these are called as the carnivores, or more correctly they are called as the primary carnivores, because in the carnivore category we also have the two types of the carnivore: primary carnivore and the secondary carnivore. Because two types of carnivores are there. See, this trophic level is of carnivore, and this trophic level is also of a carnivore. So these are considered as a primary carnivore because these are the first organisms which are directly feeding on the other animals, and the one which feeds on the other animal, it is considered as a carnivore. Okay, you should have a clear idea about this term, that is those which eats the herb, it's called as herbivore. The one which eats the animal, it is called carnivore, and the one which can eat the herbs as well as the other animals, they are called as the omnivores. Okay, the one which can eat anything. Okay, so herbivore, carnivore, and the omnivore, all these terms you should have clear idea about. Okay, now these primary carnivore, through they are considered as a secondary consumers, right? So these carnivores are the primary carnivores which are feed directly on the herbivores, and those animals that depend on the primary carnivore, they can be considered as a secondary carnivore. For example, here you understand. See, these are the primary these are the herbivores. Okay, they are directly dependent on the plants. Now these herbivores are in turn eaten by the primary carnivore. Okay, whatever the primary carnivores are there, for example snake is there, frog is there. Okay, so primary carnivore is there, and these primary carnivores in turn eaten by the top carnivores. For example, the tiger can eat any type of the rabbit or any type of the other organism, so they are considered as a secondary consumers. Okay, so secondary carnivores, this word is used to define them. So within the carnivore category we also have the primary carnivore and the secondary carnivore, right? Now consider, see, let us take the example that of the detritus food chain, that how the energies got transferred within the successive trophic level, right? See, it begins with the dead organic matter. The very first thing regarding the detritus food chain, you have to remember, it always start from the dead organic matter. Okay, now see, it is made up of the decomposers, which are the heterotrophic organisms, mainly fungi and the bacteria. So whatever the decomposition is occurring here, whatever the detritus food chain is going on there, the organisms involved in this are primarily heterotrophic organisms which cannot prepare their own food. For example, the fungi and the bacteria. Okay, they meet their energy and the nutrient requirement by degrading the dead organic matter or the detritus. Okay, so for example, this is the living plant, and after the decay, this plant, the death of this plant has occurred. Now, after the death, the energy, whatever the energy which is present within this plant body, will get transferred to the body of a fungi or within the body of a bacteria. Right now, when this fungi and the bacteria dies, this energy will ultimately release into the environment. Okay, so the process of decomposition is a complex process, and it has go through the 5 steps, and we are going to consider the process of decomposition in the next video lecture. So here you should only understand that the fungi and the bacteria were actually responsible for the consuming the dead body of an animal or of the plant, and liberate this energy when they die within the environment. Okay, so this is how the detritus food chain within the ecosystem is working, and this detritus food chain will always start from the dead organic matter, and from this dead organic matter, whatever the energy is there, or whatever the nutrients are there, these are liberated by the decomposers like fungi and the bacteria. Now these are also called as the saprotrophs, okay, because they can decompose the body, and hence they are famously called as the saprotrophs. Now these decomposers secretes the digestive enzyme, okay. What they do on the body of a dead organic matter, what the fungi and bacteria do, they will produce the digestive enzymes, okay. What they are producing there, digestive enzymes. These digestive enzymes will then tore the body, the dead body, into the pieces, and then these pieces, after the breakdown, will be utilized by these fungi and the bacteria, okay. Now the waste material is a simple inorganic material which subsequently absorbed by them, okay. So after the releasing the enzymes, what breakdown will occur, and the simple inorganic material will be released, and this simple inorganic material will be utilized by the fungi and the bacteria, okay. So this is how the detritus food chain starts with the dead organic matter, and it will end by consuming all of the material which is present within the body of a dead. Okay. Now see, in the aquatic ecosystem, see, the grazing food chain is the major conductor of the energy. Okay. See, if you talk about the aquatic ecosystem, the energy is transferred majorly by the grazing food chain. Okay. This is the second type of food chain, that is the grazing food chain. And first we have talk about the detritus food chain, which starts from the dead organic material. But in the grazing food chain, the energy is starting from the living matter. Okay. Now this will be the important difference between the detritus food chain and the grazing food chain, right? Now see, as against this, in the terrestrial ecosystem, the much larger fraction of the energy flows through the detritus food chain than the grazing food chain. Okay, so you have to remember the very important difference here is that in the terrestrial ecosystem, the much of the energy, larger fraction of the energy flows through the detritus food chain, while in the aquatic ecosystem, the major conductor of energy is the grazing food chain. Okay, so carefully remember, UPSC can twist the question here, and they will ask you that what is the difference between the detritus food chain and the grazing food chain, or what is the difference between the food energy transfer in the aquatic ecosystem and in the terrestrial ecosystem. Okay, so in the terrestrial ecosystem, the detritus food chain is the major conductor of energy, while in the terrestrial ecosystem, you will find there is a major conductor of energy through the grazing food chain. Okay, now consider here the example. In the aquatic ecosystem, the phytoplanktons are there, and these phytoplanktons will create the energy through the process of photosynthesis, right? And after the creation of energy through the photosynthesis, this will go transfer to the zooplankton to the fish larvae, to the small fish, to the bigger fish, that is the predators. Okay, so this is how the flow of energy, unidirectional flow of energy, occurs within the aquatic ecosystem. Okay, and this flow of energy through the grazing food chain is the major flow in the aquatic ecosystem. Okay, but when you talk about the major flow of energy in the terrestrial ecosystem, there you will find the detritus food chain, which is mainly responsible for this. Okay, now consider, see, the detritus food chain may be connected with the grazing food chains at the some level. Okay, it may be connected with the other grazing food chains. For example, if you talk about the grazing food chain, it will start from the dead organic matter. Okay, now this from the dead organic matter, this detritus food chain will go on, and this detritus food chain may be connected with that of the other food chain at the some levels. Okay, see how some of the organisms from the detritus food chain are the prey for the grazing food chain animals. Okay, some organisms which are involved in the detritus food chain, these organisms are actually the prey for the other organisms which are present within the grazing food chain. Okay, so you cannot separate ecologically the detritus food chain and the grazing food chain, but they are interconnected. Okay, they are dependent on the one another, because there are certain animals which are present in both of the ecosystems, within the grazing ecosystem as well, within the within the detritus food chain as well. For example, see, in the natural ecosystem, some animals like the cockroaches or the crows are connected because they are omnivores. Okay, they eat everything, and these cockroaches or the crows are interconnecting the detritus food chain and the grazing food chain, and this interconnection literally creates the food web. Okay, that is, the every living organism within the ecosystem is typically or directly or indirectly is connected with that of the other organisms. All the food chains within the ecosystems are connected with that of the each other. Okay, and when the connection is shown between the different types of the food chains or the energy transfer, we have the food web. Okay, so when you talk about the food chain is the unidirectional flow of energy within the certain animals, right, rightly starting from the plants. Okay, but when we talk about the food web, okay, when you define the term food web, these are food web are having the interconnection between the organisms. Many food chains can be interconnected to create the food web. Okay, so this is the basic difference between the food chain and the food web. In the food chain, we have the unidirectional flow of energy, and in the food web, these type of the many types of the food chains are interconnected with the one another. Okay, now see the organisms occupy a place in the natural surrounding or in the community according to their feeding relationship with the other organism. Now see, if you draw the trophic levels, the where to place the organism, it will all depend upon which type of the feeding relationship he is sharing with the other organism. For example, if it is not consuming any other organism and it is producing the food material, this will directly be placed within the primary producers, that is the plants. Okay, and their trophic level will be at the bottom because they are the producers. If the organism is a producer, this will always be present at the bottom of the trophic level. Now, based on the source of their nutrition, food, and organisms, they occupy a specific place in the food chain, which is also known as the trophic level. So, where the organism is placed within the food chain, this will all depend on which type of food material they are consuming. Okay, and this type of the food material they are consuming, they according to that they will be placed within the food chain, and this is called as the trophic level. Okay, consider here you can see the four trophic level. Okay, this is the first, second, third, and the fourth. Okay, so different trophic levels are there, and depending upon the food relationship with each other, according to that the organism will be placed on the particular trophic level. Okay, now consider producers belongs to the first trophic level. See here we have the producers, and these are producers belongs to the first trophic level. Okay, consider this is the first trophic level, and at the first trophic level these are all the producers. Green plants are there, and these green plants are producing the food material. Okay, then the herbivore, which are also called as the primary consumer to the second trophic level, these are called as the herbivores, which are also called as the primary consumer. These are present at the second trophic level, right? Then the carnivores, which are secondary consumers, these are placed on the third trophic level. Okay, and then we have the fourth category here in this diagram, which is called as the top carnivore. Okay, so this is the first trophic level, second trophic level, third trophic level, fourth trophic level. If you observe carefully, according to the nature of a feeding relationship with the other organism, according to that we have placed the organism in these trophic levels. In the first trophic level there is always the plants. In the second trophic level there will be only animals which eats the plant, that is the herbivores, the one which eats the herbs. Okay, and the herbivores are only placed within this particular one trophic level. Then we have the carnivore, which will only consume the other animals, and then we have the top carnivore, which can consume the secondary consumer as well as the primary consumer. So according to the relationship, feeding relationship with that of the other organisms, the organisms are specifically placed at the each trophic level. Okay, now see the amount of energy decreases at each trophic level. Now this is very important to understand that whatever the amount of energy which is present at the each trophic level, it will successively get decreased over a top trophic levels. Okay, now here understand, for example, here if you understand, the plants are creating the 100% of energy. Okay, now this 100% of energy is not transferred to the primary consumers or to the second trophic level. Some portion of it, okay, some part of this 100% will get transferred to the second trophic level, and some portion of the second trophic level will get transferred to the third trophic level, and some portion of this third trophic level will get transferred to the fourth trophic level. So as we move right from the bottom to the top of the trophic levels, the energy is going to decrease. Okay, energy will always decrease as we move from bottom to the top of the trophic level. At the first trophic level, you will observe there will be the maximum energy, but at the last trophic level, you will observe there is a minimum amount of energy. So as the energy transfer from the one trophic level to the next trophic level, it is going to decrease. Okay, very important, you have to understand this, that whatever the energy which is present at each trophic level, if it transferred to the next trophic level, it is going to decrease. Okay, when any organism dies, it get converted into the detritus or the dead biomass, right? That will always be serve as the energy source for the decomposers. Okay, it will not go waste, but it will be serving as the energy source for the decomposers, and we know the fungi and the bacteria are the decomposers, right? Now organisms at each trophic level will depend on the lower trophic level for their energy demand. Very important that at each trophic level, if you observe this fourth trophic level, this fourth trophic level organisms are dependent on the third trophic level. This third trophic level animals are dependent on the second trophic level, and this second trophic level animals are dependent on the first trophic level, which are the plants. Okay, so each trophic level will depend on the its lower trophic level for their energy demands. Okay, now consider, see, each trophic level has a certain mass of living material particular at a particular time, which is called as the standing crop. Okay, this is very very important. Now see, understand this. See, these are the trophic levels. This is the first trophic level, second, then the third and the fourth. Okay, now all the living organism which is present at the first trophic level, that is all the plants. Okay, so whatever the mass they were having within their body, these this is called as the standing crop of that trophic level. Okay, very important term, we have to understood it very carefully. The standing crop is that mass which is possessed by the living organism. Okay, then at the second trophic level, whatever the mass is possessed by the herbivores, this is called as the standing crop of the second trophic level. Subsequently, we have standing crop for the third trophic level and the standing crop for the fourth trophic level. Of course, you can judge that at the first trophic level you will have the maximum amount of the standing crop, and at the fourth trophic level you will have the very less amount of the standing crop. But here you should remember the term which is called the standing crop, which is nothing but the certain mass of living material at a particular trophic level at a particular time. Now this standing crop is measured as the mass of living organism. Okay, it's a biomass of living organism. At the first trophic level, all the biomass of a plant is considered as a standing crop. At the second trophic level, you can count all the biomass of the herbivores, right? That can be the standing crop of the second trophic level. Then we have the third trophic level biomass, fourth trophic level biomass, and the fifth trophic level biomass. Okay, so it can be measured in the unit area. See, the biomass is expressed in terms of the fresh weight or dry weight. Okay, it can be calculated as a fresh weight biomass, it can be calculated as a dry weight biomass. But remember, the dry weight biomass is the more accurate way of measuring it, okay, rather than the fresh weight biomass. Okay, because in the fresh weight biomass the water is the interfering variable is there. Okay, and that is why the dry weight biomass is more accurate way of measuring the biomass within the ecosystem. Okay, so this is how the standing crop is there at the each trophic level, and this standing crop can be measured as a biomass in the form of a fresh weight or in the form of a dry weight. But the the dry weight is the more accurate way of measuring the biomass. Now see, the number of trophic levels in the grazing food chain is restricted as the transfer of energy follows the 10% rule. Yes, we have understood that not all of the energy is transferred to the successive trophic level. Only the some portion of the energy is transferred from one trophic level to the another trophic level. Now this will be very important from the UPSC mains point of view, because they can ask you why there is always the restricted trophic levels. The number of trophic levels may be 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, but not more than that. Okay, we cannot have the trophic levels maximally. Now why we cannot have the many trophic levels in a one food chain or the food web? Because the very basic reason is that the 10% law is there. Whatever the energy which is created at the first trophic level, 10% of it is going to transfer to the second trophic level, and out of this 10%, again 10% is going to the third trophic level, and out of this 10% of the third trophic level, the 10% is going to be found at the fourth trophic level. So for example, if we have the 1000 kilocalorie at the first trophic level, in the second trophic level we will have the 100 kilocalorie, in the third trophic level we will only have the 10 kilocalorie, and in the fourth trophic level we have only the 1 kilocalorie transfer of energy. Okay, this is the hypothetical example, but the 10% law is followed by these particular trophic levels. When the 10% law is applied, the transfer of energy occurs within the 10%, and this 10% transfer of energy is actually responsible for having the restricted trophic levels within the ecosystem. Hence, we will always find the 3, 4, or 5 trophic levels and not more than that, because this 10% transfer of energy will end at a certain point, and after the ending it cannot be passed on to the next trophic level, and hence the number of trophic levels are always restricted within an ecosystem. So only the 10% of energy is transferring from the lower trophic level to the next trophic level, and hence we always have the restricted trophic levels within the ecosystem. Okay, so we have understood what do you mean by the transfer of energy from one organism to the another organism. We have studied the source of energy, right? Then we have studied about the trophic levels, we have studied about the grazing food chain and detritus food chain, then we have studied about the 10% law, then we have studied about the standing crop. Okay, all these topics are interconnected with each other, and you should understand them carefully in order to write your answer in the UPSC mains. All right, so this is all about this topic. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video. Please like this video, share this video with your friends who are studying the botany, and if you haven't subscribed to the Botany Capstone channel yet, please subscribe to the Botany Capstone channel for UPSC examination. Again, thank you very much for giving your time. See you in the next video lecture. Thank you.